Hey guys, you're watching Better Relationships with Nick. I'm going to teach you how to have better conversations today. I'm going to give you eight different techniques, tips in order to have better conversations. And the thing is, you got to understand that everyone is where they're at. You may not have grown up in an environment or needed to have good people skills growing up, but this is something that's really important. So I wanted to share this. It's something that's been important to me for my life, connecting with others. I love genuine human connection, and these 8 things really helped. So number 1, you want to be present and listen actively. What does that mean? So when I'm present and I'm listening actively, being present means I am existing in this conversation and this conversation alone. The only thing in the world that matters is this conversation. I want you to think about that. There's nothing else in the world that matters right now other than this conversation. So I want to give my full attention to this person, and I want to be here. I don't want to be like on my phone like, oh yeah, I heard that. Yep. Any deviation from giving that person my full attention could be seen as disrespectful and make them feel like you don't want to talk to them. Okay, so I want to be completely present. Now, a little bit of this has to do with dealing with our mind. And sometimes, maybe we've had a lot of caffeine or something, and our mind is running and we're somewhere else. And it's hard for us to have good conversations when my mind is wanting to be somewhere else. And I'm thinking about something else or somewhere else, and I'm not being present with that person. I want to listen actively and really make an effort to get to know them as a person. What are they trying to say? What are they trying to communicate? What are they talking about? I want to be present with them and talk to them. Okay, if we're talking about sports, I want to hear what they have to say about the sports, and maybe I can share. But I got to be present. I am here in the moment, present. This is how we remember things that they said to us, because the whole time I was present, I was focused on what they said. They said this. This must be important to them. I didn't know that about them. I'm really focused on them and what they have to say and what they're bringing to the conversation. That is what being present means. All right. Number 2 is asking open-ended questions. All right. I don't want to ask yes or no questions a majority of the time, and I don't want to ask questions with one-word answers. I want to ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are, I'll give you a perfect example of one. This is one of my favorite to ask. Okay? If time and money, if you had absolute complete control of time and money, you had $1 million and unlimited time, what kind of life would you be living? What would you be doing right now? Or if you had unlimited time and money, where would your top vacation spot be? If you had unlimited time and money, where in the world would you live? I want to get them to think specifically about the unlimited time and money. Where in the world would you live and why? I want them to give me more depth to that, not like Dubai. Okay? I want them to think in get them into a creative standpoint, a creative mindset, and think, wow, okay, if I had time and money, my lifestyle, okay, I want to be on a yacht, with 10 girlfriends, whatever it is. Or, man, if I had unlimited time and money, I'd want to live in a cabin in the woods by myself. If I had unlimited time and money, I'd want to live in a van. Okay, you want to get them to really think about something. And asking an open-ended question like, one of my things is, what attracted you to the career or the degree that you're pursuing. I like to use the word attracted. What attracted you to the degree that you're pursuing? And the reason I like to ask that question is because it really opens them up to more backstory. Yeah, well, I wanted to go into nursing because, I dealt with a family injury and I couldn't help them and they unfortunately died, or something like that, where they actually start sharing about themselves and, I couldn't help them and I didn't know how to do CPR and the ambulance didn't get there in time. Okay, now we're getting them to kind of open up and share stories with me about kind of why they are the way they are. So an open-ended question does not have a yes or no answer or a one-word answer. I want to ask something that's gonna give them time to think and imagine, if that makes sense. I want you to imagine I want you to imagine you are trapped on a deserted island. What would your first thought be and why? Okay? These are some just interesting questions that you can ask to just get somebody to open up and have more open conversation. Now, when that person shares, then you can kind of piggyback along that, okay? Open-ended questions. Number 3, I want to be able to share relevant information with them, but not overshare. I want to let them know that I'm hearing them, I relate to them, but I'm not going to overshare and make it about me. Maybe I share a relevant story to what they're saying. Maybe I've asked an open-ended question and they say, man, I want a Lamborghini. And then I can share, dude, that's really awesome. I actually rented a Lamborghini and raced it on the track in Vegas. It was super fun. I highly recommend, trying that out. Okay? So now I've listened that they say Lamborghini. Now I share the word Lamborghini in my statement and explain how their connection to Lamborghini and mine kind of connects us. What I don't want to do is overshare. And overshare is when I really start sharing intimate details about myself or something that happened that they don't necessarily need to know or they didn't ask about. Like, I'll give you a perfect example, all right? Yeah, someone, let's just say their best friend, dies, okay? Yeah, my best friend, I got this car because my best friend passed away. It was his favorite car, okay? What oversharing would be something like, yeah, my best friend passed away too. I walked in the room, they had killed themselves. I walked into the room, there was blood all over. They blew their brains out. Like when we start going like, we do not need to start sharing. I was like, dude, what a mess. Like that does not add value to the conversation. We are just now sharing intimate details and then start going, and you know what? I kept telling them that they were depressed and they needed to get help. Something like that. We don't want to be sharing stuff like that. That may be somewhat relevant, but do you see where it's oversharing? I start going into intimate details that don't need to be shared. You could just say, hey, you know what? I relate to that. My best friend passed away as well. So I can definitely empathize with you on that. Okay, but we don't need to go into something very graphic or oversharing, giving more details than needed. We don't need to share. And you know what oversharing also is? Another thing that could be is when we start going into details that don't necessarily matter. Yeah, so man, that reminds me of last Wednesday at 3:27 p.m. I was hanging out with Bob and Jim, and we were getting into a red SUV, and this guy said to us blah blah blah, and so we don't need to share all these extra details. People want the gist of the story. They don't want oversharing of extra details. They don't care that at 3:37 p.m. you, Bob, and Jim were doing this and a guy in a red SUV. When you're talking about reading a book, that may be important, but when we're having a conversation, you don't need to share all these intimate details. It loses track. They're like, I actually had an experience where somebody, they were trying to share their like religion with me, and this dude was telling a story, and the story was like, and in 1827 this happened, and then all these groups of people in 1903, and blah blah blah, and all these dates, and I was just sitting there like, dude, what is this guy talking about? I have no idea what all these dates have to do with anything. What is the point? Get to the point of what you're talking about. You want to get to the point, and oversharing is when we don't get to the point. We want to be a little bit more direct and be able to share relevant information. Oh, I like Lamborghini too. Not, man, I like Lamborghini and their blah 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 horsepower engine X liter. You know, do you see what I'm saying? That person may not relate to all of those intimate details. If they like Lamborghini, oh, hey, what did you like about Lamborghini? Why do you like that car? Okay, so I don't want to hammer on this point too much, but let's get into number 4. It's pretty much just be curious and show genuine interest, okay? In the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, I have it on my shelf back here. He talks about when somebody shares something with you, ask them just more questions about that thing and let them tell you why they like that thing, what they're attracted to, they want to talk about that thing. Maybe they want to talk about their Lego Mandalorian collection, their Mandalorian minifigure collection. Maybe they want to talk about that. Okay, ask them, like, wow, what's your favorite one? Like, you know, was there a show that you watched? What attracted you to that? Man, what made you decide to collect those? Okay, so just be curious. That's interesting. I want to know more. And in a genuine way, because I'm present, I want to know more. I'm not going to really be interviewing them. Tell me more about that. Nothing like that. I'm just curious. Wow, that's pretty interesting. I'm actually genuinely interested in that. I've never heard of anyone that did that. Tell me more about that. I don't want to have if I'm not interested in what they're saying, I don't want to be asking deeper questions. I want to have a little bit of genuine interest. If I don't care about the intimate details, I'm not asking those questions, okay? I want to be curious and I want to show genuine interest to them. Keyword, genuine interest. It has to be something genuinely that I find intriguing that they said. Otherwise, I'm just being fake, all right? Number 5, I want to avoid interrupting or judging, okay? Number 1, interrupting. If I do need to interrupt, because sometimes I do, hey, let me, I totally understand. You just say this. I totally understand. Hey, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. This is somewhat off topic, but I really think that this is related to what we're talking about. You just need to preface, hey, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this, what you just said there made me think about this. Okay, so I'm going to avoid interrupting them. Like, if they're talking, if I need to interrupt, I want to have some sort of transition icebreaker to be able to do that. But if they're talking about something, I don't want to interrupt or change the subject. It's not present. The reason I'm interrupting is because I'm not present with them and my mind is somewhere else, and now I'm bringing that into the conversation, forcing it on them. So I want to avoid interrupting at all costs. I don't want to judge them either. If they share something, I don't want to be like, wow, why would you do that? That's so stupid. That makes them feel like unsafe, and then they don't want to share anymore. Well, wow, I thought they were interested. Now they're calling me stupid. Well, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. You don't want to judge them for their decisions. I just want to listen and ask questions. That's interesting. If it's something that doesn't make sense to me, then I ask a follow-up question. Well, normally in that situation, I would do this. I'm curious as to why you thought that was the best decision. That in that sense, I'm getting to know them more without judging. I'm coming from a place of getting to know why they made that decision. Okay, let's just say it's like a Republican or Democrat. Like, oh, you voted Democrat, you are retarded. All right, you don't want to say stuff like that. You want to say, interesting. What did you like about that candidate? And let them tell you without judging. And they'll often tell you, hey, you know what? I really believe strongly about this, and I thought this was the person that best represented that. Now, because I didn't judge them, now I can find common ground. You know what? I totally see where you're coming from. I value that too. I just found the Republican candidate to, in my mind, I felt like they conveyed that message a little bit better, and I thought their solution was a little bit better. Okay. Number 6, I'm not going to get too into this, but body language. I just want to be able to face them. One thing is called mirroring. I want to face them. I want to make eye contact, not too much eye contact, but I just want to show that I'm present with them. And I want to mirror them a little bit. So generally, if someone crosses their arms, it's a good sign when you cross your arms too. I don't want you to be doing this like a robot, like you're mimicking them. But when you like someone, your body naturally is going to kind of do what they do because it shows that we like each other. All right? But pretty much for body language, I want to just show that I'm paying attention to them. I want to be facing their direction. I would like to... Body language... We're not going to be like super far away trying to get away from them, and we're not going to be super close trying to talk to them super close up, okay? I had an individual that I've spoken to, and I always felt like every time I talked to him, he was trying to like, if I turned my head this way, he'd like get in front of me, and like, I felt like that was kind of weird. You want to be facing them, but like give them some space to be, you don't want to be crowding them, okay? And then 7, be okay with silence. Being okay with silence just means that if someone's sitting there and thinking, sometimes there's natural pauses in a conversation. And that is completely normal. So if I'm sharing something and I'm speaking and I'm like, yeah, so, yeah, this weekend... I think this weekend I'm going to start reading a little bit in the morning, maybe hit the gym. Some people just speak with natural pauses, and sometimes you may ask a question to them, and they may just sit there in silence and think about it for a little bit. Maybe more introverted people are going to do this. You have to be okay with silence. One of the things that causes a problem in a conversation is maybe I ask someone something, they don't give me an answer within the next couple seconds, and I'm like, now I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh, was that a weird question? Like, you know, I'm sorry I asked that, you know, and really they just needed some time. And maybe we're just sitting there and the conversation has come to a natural lull. I'm okay just sitting there. Maybe they may recognize the silence and just be like, let's just say we sit here for 3 seconds. And then they're like, what do you think about this? Because I was okay with that silence for a couple seconds, it gave them time to think about a question maybe that they wanted to ask me. And then now I can share what I think. And number 8 is just practice empathy. I want to, as best as I can, I want to see where they're coming from. I want to understand. Empathy just means I can put myself in their shoes and I can understand what they're what they're dealing with, how they're feeling. If I can't, sometimes sometimes there's situations that you just don't relate to, and you don't know how that feels, and I usually just say, hey, look, I personally haven't experienced that. I can't imagine what that feels, but I would think that it's just something that takes a long time to get over. Something like that, just putting myself in their shoes as best as I can. And understanding, I really want to come to an understanding of them and why they operate the way they do, and why they do the things they do, and why do they say what they say. Without judging, why is that the case? I want to ask, why is that the case? And really, the whole time I'm in the conversation, while I'm being present, I want to be attempting to be one with them. I want to put myself in their mind and learn why they're thinking the way they do, because the way they think is very valuable, especially when it's something different than the way I think. And I may learn something. And I may need that piece of information for a journey in my life. It really just comes down to humility, understanding that I'm not better than them. The Bible says, do not do anything out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. In humility, count others better than yourselves. So when you just think about that statement, consider them better than yourself and treat them like they're better than you. Not to manipulate them, but just to show them that you value them and who they are and where they come from. Have a wonderful day, guys.